A car parked near your home is hiding a dark truth about someone you trust. Inside it, a man has been. Archangel Michael says, a truth has pulled up to your curb and left its engine ticking, and you are meant to hear it, feel it, and rise above it. The night wears a hood and the streetlights hold their breath as if the air itself understands that something secret has arrived. You do not run, you do not tremble, you simply listen to the message that meets you like a key sliding into an unseen lock. The car appears ordinary and unremarkable, as if it belonged to a forgotten errand or a neighbor's late return. Paint dulled by dust, plates clean but unmemorable, it waits with a patience that knows its own purpose. It has parked near your home 3 nights in a row, always at a slight angle as if the wheels lean toward your door. Inside the car, a man has been making notes in a small black book that smells like rain and old ink. He writes without hesitation, the way a person writes when they already decided the story they want to tell. His eyes move between your windows and the page as though the house itself speaks a language that only careful listeners understand. He has been timing the pulses of your life and mapping them into lines. He records when the porch light clicks on and when it clicks off, when your kettle sings and when your hallway turns quiet. He tracks the rhythm of your steps and the hush of your rooms because the pattern is the path to the secret he is paid to find. His phone glows with names that avoid the truth by wearing familiarity. Saved numbers carry labels that pretend to be harmless and helpful, yet each call lands like a finger pressing into a bruise. The dates align with moments you remember as passing clouds, yet those clouds now gather into a storm that speaks. This man did not arrive by accident because no shadow this focused is ever accidental. He was sent by a person who once drank tea at your table and laughed in the same room where your trust sleeps. He was hired by someone who smiled with warm eyes yet held a quiet ledger of envy that never closed. He watches the way you greet the morning because your morning teaches him your faith. He watches the way you lock your door because your lock teaches him your boundaries. He watches the way you stand in your own silence because your silence teaches him your strength. He has learned that you keep certain letters near the kitchen phone because you like to feel paper when you think. He has learned that you stack your keys with intention as if metal and habit can agree to protect you. He has learned that every evening you give yourself a moment at the doorway to breathe like a swimmer who loves the shore and the sea at once. When he shifts in the driver's seat, the fabric whispers like a reluctant witness. He tilts the rearview mirror until your windows frame themselves as a theater stage. He lifts a camera so small it prefers hiding to boasting, and the lens blinks the way a lie blinks when it tries to look like truth. A signal light from a tower far away runs its silent thread through the dark and ties the car to other eyes. 2 streets over, another engine pretends to sleep while its battery feeds a hungry device. The web is patient and precise because patience and precision are the ethics of those who do not possess courage. On the second night he opens a glove box and removes a folded map marked with circles that orbit your home. The pen strokes are neat because neatness calms people who walk in wrong directions. The circles widen then narrow like the breath of a decision that is almost ready to be spoken. A name appears in his messages and it belongs to someone you once trusted with an unlocked heart. The text thread uses casual words the way a mask uses casual eyes. Each line is a room where the door appears friendly and the floor waits to fold. He listens to a voice message in which your trusted one pretends that all of this is necessary and justified. The words glide like oil across a kitchen tile and their slick confidence tries to make the fall look elegant. Yet even oil reveals the truth when light steadies itself upon it. He has been gathering evidence that twists harmless moments into suspicious poses. He edits your evenings into a mosaic that rearranges innocence into implication. He turns routine into performance because performance is easier to sell than reality. In his notebook he lists small items with the weight of large conclusions. He writes coffee cups, porch light, 2 phone calls, window still open, and he underlines the word still because it comforts him to pretend that your peace is a mistake. He wants the world to believe that your life is a pattern of doors left ajar, even though your care is the quiet opposite. The third night he brings an envelope stamped with an emblem that confuses authority with control. Inside it lies a contract written in polite threats that keep their menace hiding beneath polished grammar. The signature line has already been printed with a name that once helped you carry a heavy box up a narrow stair. That name belongs to someone who felt small while standing next to your light and chose resentment instead of courage. They wanted the benefits of your kindness without the responsibility of their own promise. They envied the way your laughter gathered people like a fireplace gathers winter. When the man in the car exhales, the window fogs and your house becomes a watercolor. The distanced outline reassures him because distance protects the faint-hearted from the full strength of what they fear. He keeps the engine off to save power and to resemble a harmless pause. He flips the pages of a dossier that was silently assembled from the crumbs of your days. The dossier wraps its numbers around your name the way ivy wraps stone, charming and relentless. It pretends to be neutral, yet it serves a purpose sharpened like a concealed blade. At the bottom of one page he has written a number that measures your threshold for pain, and he is wrong. He has underestimated your history and overestimated his own cleverness. He imagines that endurance and silence are the same thing, and he has never been more mistaken. The street smells like wet iron because the air remembers rain. Leaves press themselves into the curb and hum with the patience of things that know seasons. At your window a delicate thread of movement notes the car's presence and adds it to memory. You feel the pressure of a truth turning from rumor into shape. You sense the weight of footsteps that pretend to be smoke. You do not yield because yielding does not belong to you. There is a moment when the man lifts a small recorder that looks like a friendly button. He presses play and the air inside the car receives the voice of the one you used to trust. The voice sounds careful and clean, like a polished spoon left on a table that no one remembers setting. The message instructs the man to wait until dawn because dawn weakens resolve. The message instructs him to nudge a story into your neighborhood like a stray cat that looks adorable and carries sickness. The message instructs that the goal is not truth but consent crafted from confusion. He nods because people in the habit of nodding forget how to say no. He believes that information is power even when the information is poisoned. He believes that if he builds a perfect file, the file will behave like destiny. But destiny does not obey files and light does not fear paper. Destiny notices the car and counts its steady mistakes. Destiny writes your name on the morning and closes the night like a prayer that no longer wishes to hide. You walk from one room to another with a quiet that sounds like skill. You open a drawer and your hand finds what it was looking for without hesitation. You keep your breath soft because soft breath allows the heart to speak clearly. You call the kind friend who lives 2 buildings away because courage enjoys witnesses. You tell them only what is needed because need is a language that wastes nothing. You ask them to stand at their window and hold your name steady in their mind the way a lighthouse holds a beam. With each small action you reclaim the space the car tried to occupy. With each small choice you change the angle of the street in ways no map captures. With each small confirmation you teach the night that it cannot borrow your signature. The man in the car notices the subtle pattern in your windows and misunderstands it. He writes that you are predictable because he confuses loyalty with repetition. He writes that you are fragile because he confuses grace with absence of defense. He scrolls to a photograph of you laughing in a doorway from a week when sunlight felt like a promise. He places the picture beside a list of your appointments to force meaning into coincidence. The page looks convincing to people who worship arrangements more than truth. The person you once trusted sends him a final instruction dressed in admiration. They tell him that you are strong and that strong people can endure scrutiny. They pretend that testing you is a form of respect, though their respect is a glove hiding a fist. When midnight steps forward, your street becomes a silver seam. The car's windshield collects the moon and wears it like a borrowed crown. The man inside believes that crowns prove ownership, and again he is wrong. Your door lock clicks with intention and the hallway takes off its shoes. Your steps move as if a river taught them how to travel. You choose not to confront because confrontation would feed the story they are writing. Instead, you align with the quiet architecture of protection that angels favor when thunder would be too loud. You move lights in your home with deliberate timing that will read as randomness to anyone outside. You create a pattern that has no pattern, and the surveillance grid loses its confidence. The man scribbles a note that says subject deviating, and the word deviating makes him feel clever. He adds 3 exclamation points because panic likes to dress up as urgency. He reaches for the envelope and pauses as if the paper grew teeth. He begins to question his orders. yet the habit of obedience ties his hands more tightly than rope. He remembers the money he was promised and decides to finish what he started. He forgets that work performed against truth always bills the sole interest. The street receives a slow-moving truck that belongs to the city and not to any shadow. The truck's hazard lights blink with the authority of the obvious. The driver peers at the car's position and notes a small violation of the posted sign. The man in the car startles because men who trade in secrecy often fear public rules. He fumbles for the ignition and drops his pen, which rolls beneath the seat like a startled fish. He curses in a language that sounds tired of itself. Your neighbor's dog lifts its head and acknowledges the disturbance without taking sides. A curtain across the street slides the width of a fingernail, then stops. The night continues to witness because witnessing is its occupation. When the truck moves on, the car remains yet carries a crack along its calm. The man recenters the mirror as if the world can be controlled with angles. He breathes in a pattern the way people breathe when they want their ribs to become armor. He presses record again and frames a whispered narrative for his unseen client. He says that you are restless and that restlessness confirms guilt. He believes his own sentence because repetition is a spell for those who wish to be asleep with their eyes open. Inside your chest a gate opens without noise and a steadier wind arrives. Your understanding clarifies like a pane just polished. This is not a random car and not a harmless watcher and not a test you agreed to take. You trace your way back through smaller memories until you reach the moment the betrayal chose its shoes. You remember a conversation where the smile was slightly fast and the praise sounded hollow, and you forgave it because forgiveness is your native weather. You remember the day a favor was offered with excessive warmth and the gift felt heavier than the wrapping. Now the weight arranges itself into sentences you can finally read. Every line ends with your name and begins with someone else's hunger. The car is a page and the man is the ink, and both are running out of glue. A soft ring touches the air as your phone receives a message from the friend across buildings. They send a photograph of the car from a clean angle and archive the moment with integrity. The time stamp sits beside the image like a witness who knows how to stand. You reply with 3 words that build a small bridge. You say almost done because you refuse to dramatize what can be solved by precision. You turn off the light nearest the street and leave on the one that the man cannot see. He misreads the gesture and records that you are sleeping as if sleep proves anything. He relaxes a little, and relaxation loosens the grip of his caution. He does not notice that he has left the small recorder running when his hand slides away. The recorder captures a second voice that enters from his speaker as a call comes through. The voice belongs to your trusted one and the tone is rehearsed compassion. They say to keep calm and to gather the details and to confirm the story by dawn. The device also captures an accidental truth he speaks when he thinks he is alone. He mutters that he does not like the taste of this job and that something about you refuses to match the picture he was mailed. He tells the dark that your steadiness unsettles him because he expects fear and finds focus. Morning lifts the horizon like a curtain and the street reassembles itself into daily language. A city worker returns and knocks on the windshield with an easy neutrality that is not negotiable. Papers exchange hands and the car's position becomes a fact with fees. The man folds his tools with sarcastic care because the day has an audience. He tosses the envelope to the passenger seat and starts the engine without grace. He drives away with the posture of someone who failed to make a clean photograph of a miracle. You step onto your porch and breathe the way a mountain breathes after a storm. Nothing about your face asks permission to exist. The quiet around your shoulders fits like armor that learned how to comfort. A new day opens and you choose to document without rage because documentation is the spine of dignity. You collect the neighbor's image and the message log and the times noted by your friend's watch. You place the pieces in a folder and give that folder a name that refuses to bow. The person you once trusted sends a cheerful greeting to maintain the performance. You answer with a courtesy that protects your peace while revealing nothing further. You move like a chessboard that has finally seen the whole table. You consult with those whose work is to honor facts without bending them. You speak clearly because clarity respects both your heart and the process you choose. You take each step slowly because slowness is the speed of precision. As the day lengthens, your rooms exhale the stale breath of the car's attention. The sidewalk remembers the tires and releases them the way a mirror releases old faces. The air tastes lighter and your name sounds like itself again. You clean the doorway and let sunlight mark the threshold with gentle authority. You touch the wall where your trust used to lean and discover that the wall belongs to you, not to any story they wish to sell. You realign the small objects of your life and feel them return to their native gravity. The betrayal tries once more to ring your phone with a bouquet of polite urgency. You let it move to voicemail where its petals fade. You walk into the kitchen and pour water that has decided to become generous. The voice inside, the one that kept you steady while the car collected lies, speaks with a calm echo. It tells you that your worth was never under observation. It tells you that your spirit cannot be photographed by a lens built for fear. You write a letter to your future self that thanks this morning for its courage. You sign it with the name that belongs only to you and never to any dossier. You place the letter where you keep the important tools of your life. From now on you live by a rhythm that refuses to explain itself to envy. From now on you answer only to the agreements you made with hope. From now on your boundaries carry velvet on the outside and steel within. You walk past the window and notice that the curb has become just a curb again. A bird lands where the car once hunted your silence and begins its normal work of singing. The day continues because the day loves to continue. Later a knock at your door arrives with a softness shaped by respect. A neighbor brings a small plant with leaves like confident hands. They say that green things know how to keep going and you let the words settle into the room. In the evening you open your windows and let the house breathe until the curtains look relieved. You light a simple candle not for drama but for gentle company. The flame holds its shape like a promise that is tired of being postponed. You recall the sound of the man's pen scratching and watch your mind release it as if setting a moth free from a jar. You recall the message that tried to reshape your life and watch it crumble like a chalk outline in the rain. You recall the car's shadow and notice that your home does not absorb shadows that do not belong. Freedom returns with practical shoes and stands in your hallway, patient and sure. Freedom checks the locks and smiles with approval. Freedom sits at your table and asks nothing because it is already yours. You rest without apology because the body honors victories that look like quiet. Sleep comes to you as a lake comes to a valley when the mountain finally lowers its guard. The night drifts past your home without checking your windows. A week later you hear that the man from the car quit the assignment he could not finish. He filed a report that failed to injure you because it never touched your truth. He moved on to easier targets and learned nothing except that light inconveniences darkness. The person who hired him discovers that plans built on envy travel badly. Their certainty begins to rust in the weather of facts. Their voice grows small in rooms where honesty is required. You hold no appetite for revenge because revenge wastes the time you already reclaimed. You prefer good work and deeper sleep and the simple excellence of steady days. You prefer real friendships to friendly surveillance. Your home returns to the art of everyday living with gratitude. Your kitchen regains its music and your porch resumes its role as witness to ordinary grace. Your threshold learns your new step and approves. You water the plant from your neighbor and watch its leaves turn toward the patient sun. You feel the same instinct in your chest and follow it without ceremony. Growth chooses you again because you chose it first. Whenever you pass the curb you nod at the place where fear once rented a seat. You do not pretend the story never happened because the truth deserves a clear shelf in memory. You simply decide that the shelf will live near the back where dust eventually wins. What began as a car in the night ends as a lesson in custody of the self. Your life returns to your hands in ways that feel both new and ancient. The lock in your door and the key in your pocket greet each other like old friends who survived a misunderstanding. The street belongs to morning and the morning belongs to you. Your name stands upright inside you like a pillar that forgot how to fall. The world outside notices that you shine without seeking permission. You step outside and the air chooses you again because courage perfumes the breath. The leaves applaud with their small hands as a breeze moves through. The day folds itself around your shoulders and fits. You keep walking, not toward or away, but through. You keep choosing what honors you and refuse what sells you. You keep listening to the voice that knew the car was never bigger than your light. And somewhere, a quiet book closes itself, ashamed of its incorrect chapter. And somewhere, a camera forgets your shape because your soul will not stand still for theft. And somewhere, a false contract learns the law of fire and becomes harmless ash. You return to your home and allow the door to close with the sound of completion. The floor under your feet recognizes your weight and sings. Everything ordinary becomes holy by proximity to the truth you kept. The night will come again, as nights always do, yet it no longer arrives as a test. It arrives as a blanket that prefers peace. It arrives knowing that the only watchers welcome near your windows are stars. You are the keeper of your threshold and the author of your weather. You are the gardener of your freedom and the witness to your resilience. You are the home you protect and the future you nourish. The message has been delivered and the street has learned your name. The car has learned its place and the past has learned its size. Your life walks forward with eyes that have seen and a heart that remains generous. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks, with contributions of up to $20. Days later, the curb looks ordinary again but carries a finer understanding. You step outside with your list, your evidence, and your calm. The street recognizes your posture and gives you right of way. You add small measures that respect your peace without advertising fear. Curtains learn new angles and lights learn new hours. Doors greet the day with a quiet discipline that answers only to you. The neighbor who sent the photograph becomes a partner in clarity. You share times, details, and the calm sequence that replaced panic. Together you draw a clean line between vigilance and worry. You schedule a conversation with someone whose work is to hold facts steady. Their office smells like paper and patience and does not rush your sentences. You place the photographs on the table like tiles in a careful mosaic. They speak about documentation as a promise you make to your future self. Chain of custody becomes a phrase you can carry without heaviness. Every detail finds its shelf and the shelves begin to hold. Word returns that the man from the car has requested a meeting. He wants to put his apology in the same room as the truth. You agree because dignity is strong enough to listen without surrender. He sits with his shoulders lower than before, as if weight learned manners. He describes assignments that pretend to be harmless because they pay well. He admits that your steadiness forced him to see his work with better light. He slides a small folder across the table without drama. Names, times, payments, and a short message that was meant to guide him appear in order. The paper looks ordinary and finally behaves like evidence instead of theater. You acknowledge his effort to correct what he can correct. You refuse to carry his guilt because it was never yours. You take only what belongs to you: clarity, proof, and forward motion. The person you trusted sends a message that tries to rehearse sincerity. It offers explanations shaped like polished spoons. It suggests misunderstandings where the record shows decisions. You answer without anger because anger would make their frame useful. You repeat the facts once, clearly, and close the door that pretends to be a window. You move your name out of their mouth and place it back in your own. Archangel Michael says, "Your courage is not loud, but it is precise and it travels." It travels through papers, rooms, and days without losing balance. It travels until the story returns to the right owner. You learn how peace is also a practice. It is a list, a routine, a well-organized drawer. It is the art of not letting uninvited hands arrange your life. The plant your neighbor gifted finds a brighter shelf. Its leaves tilt toward small changes you made for larger reasons. Growth nods to growth and the room learns the posture of relief. A message arrives from an unknown number and fails to shake you. It stumbles against your new boundaries and falls apart. You file it with the rest of the noise and keep walking. You visit a favorite cafe and order something simple on purpose. The ordinary becomes a ceremony of return. The cup warms your hands and agrees to keep your day uncomplicated. At home, you sort through old kindnesses and remove those that wore disguises. Not every warmth deserved a key. Not every smile deserved a permanent seat. You keep the best people close without asking them to be perfect. You keep the steady habits that protect your sleep. You keep a pen ready for the life that is still being written. Your hallway mirrors your progress with modest pride. Floors sound like agreement beneath your steps. Windows return to their job of holding light instead of suspicion. When a neighbor asks if you are okay, you answer with honest brevity. Yes, and thank you sits well on your tongue. Community becomes a simple word that remembers how to act. You replace a bulb on the porch and it becomes a small crown for the doorway. The key in your pocket trusts your hand again. The lock trusts the key because trust is now a choice, not a hope. You open the folder and create copies that live where they should live. Digital and paper agree to watch over each other. You label things with names that tell the truth quickly. The day the report is filed, the sky is uncomplicated blue. You walk home at a human pace without rehearsing imaginary arguments. Facts have their home now, so your thoughts can return to yours. A letter arrives from the one who tried to choreograph your fate. It speaks of stress, pressure, and a misunderstanding with expensive shoes. It avoids the word decision because decision would reveal spine. You read it once to understand the performance. You do not read it twice because repetition is not nourishment. The envelope goes where closed stories go. Archangel Michael says, spite is a poor architect and envy builds leaky roofs. Your home requires better crafts and you have learned their names. Boundaries, consent, and steadiness stand like beams. You begin a new routine that starts with the window and ends with the notebook. Morning light becomes your quiet witness. Notes record what matters and let the rest dissolve. On an afternoon made of soft errands, you see the man from the car across the street. He looks smaller and perhaps more awake. He nods with a humility that does not demand forgiveness to be real. You nod back because acknowledgement costs nothing and sometimes buys clarity. You keep walking because your story does not live in that car anymore. Your horizon keeps expanding because that is what horizons do when they are respected. There are nights when memory taps your shoulder to test the lock. You answer with a breath and the small rituals that keep you stable. The tap learns there is no performance left to feed. Your friend across buildings becomes a Saturday tradition. You exchange vegetables, jokes, and the kind of silence that honors trust. The plant grows another leaf and everyone notices. You call an elder who never twisted your name for their use. They tell you stories that do not erase your pain but teach it manners. Wisdom enters the room wearing work clothes, not wings. You update a list titled People Who Get Keys. The list is shorter now and stronger for it. Your door appreciates the edit and your future agrees. Work finds you more easily when your energy is no longer renting out rooms. Projects line up like respectful guests. Your attention stops tripping over someone else's mess. You revisit the corner where the car once angled its intentions. The asphalt bears no scar, and that is its wisdom. The lesson belongs to you, not to the ground. A new neighbor moves in with curious eyes and careful boxes. You welcome them with kindness that does not mortgage your privacy. They learn the rhythm of the street without being taught the map of your heart. The person who tried to choreograph your fall starts appearing in other people's cautionary tales. Their patterns are seen because patterns prefer repetition and repetition reveals itself. You are not required to be their teacher. You donate a small stack of objects that carry the wrong story. Space returns like breath held too long. Dust leaves with quiet gratitude because it prefers surfaces without memory. In the mirror you witness how relief adjusts the face. Lines soften where vigilance used to grip. Eyes brighten where endless checking tried to live. Evenings return to their favorite flavor. A book opens and does not expect to fight for attention. The kettle sings for pleasure, not alarm. Archangel Michael says, your days now practice the grammar of grounded joy. Subject, verb, object align without manipulation. The sentence of your life reads clean again. You write thank you notes that do not erase the work you did for yourself. Gratitude and self-respect share the table without competing. Both leave the room more nourished than when they arrived. Your inbox receives a formal notice that things you reported are being handled. Bureaucracy takes its careful steps and you let it dance at its own tempo. You keep copies, dates, and the dignity of not hovering. A morning rain sweeps the block and everything rinses easier than before. The curb holds pearls of water instead of secrets. The air wears a new honesty that suits the season. Someone brings up gossip and finds it does not stick to you. Your surface learned to be non-porous where poison is concerned. You are not rude, only immune. You start a small project you postponed when the street felt heavy. It uses color, wood, and your hands. The result is useful and handsome and belongs to no one else. You sleep without rehearsing worst-case theater. Dreams move to better neighborhoods. Morning meets you rested and ready to say yes to the right things. The folder of evidence slides further back on the shelf, properly labeled. It remains accessible and unimportant at the same time. That balance becomes a private masterpiece. You delete old messages that tried to tie you to someone else's hunger. The bin swallows them and refuses to burp. Silence returns to its best music. On a walk at dusk, a child draws a chalk sun on the sidewalk. The image smiles at every passerby. You step around it with the respect art deserves. You buy a new doormat that says exactly what you mean. Welcome, with conditions, printed in small honest letters. The mat becomes a philosophy disguised as fiber. Archangel Michael says, your boundaries are not walls, they are doors with holy hinges. They swing for what is good and stay steady against what is not. The hinge is your discernment and it no longer squeaks. An invitation arrives to a gathering you once dreaded attending. You accept because you are no longer negotiating your presence with fear. Your seat at the table waits like a chair that knows your name. You enter the room and bring weather that cannot be faked. People adjust their posture because real steadiness sets the tone. Conversations choose cleaner air because it feels better to breathe. News reaches you that the man from the car found different work. He builds now instead of watching for hire. His hands are learning to make, not take. You do not become his judge or savior. You simply hope the lesson holds for him as it did for you. Everyone benefits when truth becomes a trade. A thin letter arrives with a final administrative seal. It confirms outcomes that your heart already reached. Closure becomes paperwork, and paperwork bows. You make a small meal that tastes like a holiday without a calendar. The tableware clinks a soft applause. The window keeps the evening without trying to capture it. A friend asks how you knew you were done with the old story. You answer with 3 words that carry a whole road. Peace held shape. You archive the digital folder in a sensible place. The file name remains plain and findable. Drama does not get to ride along. You spend an afternoon rearranging books by the way they make you feel. The shelf becomes a mood map that respects your current terrain. The book about resilience gets a prime seat and smiles at the room. When your phone lights up, you now decide, not react. Your yes is a signature and your no is a sentence that ends kindly. Punctuation returns as a right, not a panic. Archangel Michael says, what once stalked your window is now walking behind you, harmless and outgrown. You do not have to turn around to check. Your stride tells the story the way birds know north. The plant is taller and leans toward a future both of you can smell. You rotate the pot and let it strengthen its spine from more angles. Adaptation becomes a quiet celebration. Neighbors wave with the ease of people who trust the ground under them. Small talk turns into real talk without force. The block learns how to be a village again. On a quiet Sunday, you write a sentence on a card and place it near the door. It says, keep what keeps you. The door reads it daily and behaves accordingly. You start keeping a calendar of joys as carefully as you kept evidence. Sunlight through steam earns a square. A clean laugh earns a line. You remember that safety is also creative. It arranges time that wants to be lived. It scouts new paths and keeps only the useful ones. A car sometimes parks on the street because streets are for cars. You notice without narrating. You breathe without borrowing yesterday's fear. Your home learns a new normal that fits like well-made clothing. You move better inside it because it was tailored by truth. Seams hold even when days pull. The person who once smiled with hidden invoices fades from your daily weather. Their forecasts no longer apply here. Your sky answers to better meteorology. Archangel Michael says, you did not win by being harder, you won by being whole. Wholeness is flexible where false strength breaks. Wholeness can carry both vigilance and gentleness without conflict. You collect small proofs that your life is yours. A repaired hinge that no longer squeaks. A morning that did not ask permission to be kind. A season turns and the block turns with it. Leaves change honestly and fall without scandal. You sweep because you like the sound of stewardship. On the anniversary of the night that tried to claim you, you make tea. You stand at the same window and disagree with nothing. Gratitude sits beside you and keeps its voice soft. You text your friend across buildings a single emoji that you both understand. The reply arrives with the same quiet joy. Rituals survive because they evolve. You file a final note, case complete in heart. The body exhales an old worry it forgot it was holding. Space returns, and you let it stay. Your steps carry you to the curb and past it without ceremony. The world meets you half a breath sooner than before. Ease multiplies where it is welcomed. There is no grand finale, only the elegant persistence of good days. Breakfast becomes a kind of blessing you do not need to name. Evening becomes a porch where peace sits comfortably. Archangel Michael says, keep the door to your life unlocked for light and locked for lies. The difference is clear now and will remain clear. You are the keeper who learned the keys by heart. The past no longer auditions for futures it cannot hold. It finds its shelf and sleeps. You walk forward into chapters that do not require a watcher in a car to feel alive. Your name fits you like a glove made of exactness. The mirror answers without distortion. The street outside keeps being a street, which is its highest art. You turn off the porch light at a time you chose. The door closes with a sound that belongs to completion, not defense. Inside, the air is yours, the night is yours, the next day is already leaning toward you with open hands.